This is Alex in Hamburg, New York, Independent Line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Just a couple real quick points before I get to my main point. People were talking about tax cuts, and the previous gentleman before this had talked about the national debt and how interest is accruing on this national debt and how, nobody's going to touch Medicaid. Does anybody understand the concept that cutting taxes is taking away revenue from the Treasury, and therefore it's increasing the national debt? I mean, does anybody see this except for me? Why are we cutting taxes if we're talking about the national debt in the same sentence? It just doesn't make any sense at all.
So, Alex, the argument is that cutting taxes will stimulate the economy, therefore growing the economy. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and that's why people are knee deep in credit card debt. People are overspending. I mean, we have to live within our means. So forget about the tax cuts. That's not going to stimulate spending. People are going to spend no matter what. They're not going to spend more because, well, actually, they will spend more. They'll get deeper in debt themselves. I get the argument. But anyway, that was not my main point. My main point here was, and just one other thing. Another caller before had said that C-SPAN's pushing left narratives, and you responded, "We're not pushing a narrative," and you're exactly right. All you're doing is reading them. You're reading narratives just to let people know nobody's pushing any agenda here. You're just reading headlines, just in your defense. Anyway, I'm a federal worker, and I've only worked for the federal government for 23 years. And 3 months ago, if I would have called this program, I would have been calling on the Republican line. But I'll tell you what, this president and his attacks on federal workers is pushing me to watch things I never would have watched before, CNN, MSNBC, because nobody's talking rationally about what the plight of the federal worker is here.
What agency or department are you with? Can you tell us?
So I'm one of those bad guys, one of those shiftless bureaucrats that works for the Department of Homeland Security that keeps people out of the country and deports them and deports illegal aliens. I'm one of those bad shiftless bureaucrats. And the reason I say that, obviously it's sarcasm, is that I also received that email saying that I'm a worthless, low productivity worker. How terrible is it that every federal worker in the United States, no matter what your level of skill is, received that email saying that you should resign because you will have a higher productivity in the private sector? I mean, are we being serious here? Are you kidding me? So I reached out to my congressman, who, by the way, I'm going to call him up by name, Nick Langworthy, in the 23rd district here in New York. And again, there's an R on my voting card, so I'm on his side, or I was on his side, until he refused to talk to people who, like me, are deeply concerned about the plight of the federal workers. And one of the things we're talking about here in this big, beautiful bill, so-called, is reducing the benefit package that federal workers receive once they retire, their health care, their pension. And I never thought I'd say this 23 years ago when I entered the government. It's one of the reasons I took this job is because I saw what was happening at GM and other large industries. They were cutting people's pensions because they were going bankrupt. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to be a civil servant, work in law enforcement, and retire on a decent pension. I'm not going to play this game of the private sector. And here I am now, fearful of what's going to happen of my 20-plus years service, and it's going to be cut because people want to take an axe to, these are things that I earned over my career. I earned this pension. I earned this thing. This is like the deferred payment for the future, and they're going to cut that. And this is just complete disrespect. Not a single Republican congressman is standing up to this guy. And again,
Alex, we got to move on. I'm sorry to have to cut you off, but we're coming up next with Aaron Mehta.